Hey guys, and welcome back to Raid TV. This is going to be a review of the Tiffen 62mm variable ND filter. Alright, so first let's talk about what a variable ND filter is. So pretty much a variable ND filter is two pieces of glass that are side by side, and when rotated in opposite directions will cause your image to lighten or darken depending on what you're looking for. Now, the best analogy you'll see on YouTube is that variable NDs are like sunglasses for your lens. And that's pretty accurate because it's essentially a piece of glass that goes over your lens and cuts out the amount of light going into it. Now, this is very important when trying to achieve certain things such as depth of field and motion blur. Now, on professional cameras, you can control your aperture, and your aperture is how much light you allow into the camera lens. Now, the more light you allow, the lower your aperture, which also means the more blurry your background would be, and that's a really nice look. A lot of people want the shallow depth of field. However, when you open up the aperture, you're letting a ton more light in, which means your image is going to look very overexposed and unusable. So that's where they'll throw this ND filter on, cut the amount of light to counteract the aperture being wide open, and then you get a perfectly exposed image with a shallow depth of field. I'm sure you've also seen those pictures of waterfalls where the water is super foggy and smooth and it almost looks like Photoshop. It actually turns out that ND filters are how you can achieve that, because they'll just set their exposure on their camera for a really long amount of time, which means they're allowing all the motion blur to capture, which also means they're allowing a ton more light in, thus adding the variable ND to cut that out. However, for my purposes, I'm using this ND filter on top of a moment lens so that I could get a shutter speed of 1/48 at 24 frames per second, which will give me that cinematic motion blur that I really want to achieve with my videos. Now, the best way to explain shutter speed is the faster your shutter speed, the more jittery your footage will appear. It's catching every frame very instantly and almost freezing it. So when you have a slower shutter speed, it's allowing more motion blur to be captured, which makes your image look a lot more cinematic. Alright, so let's first get into the build quality. So this Tiffen variable ND filter is composed of two color core technology glass elements. Now, this allows Tiffen to control the color shifting even when adding those higher stops of ND. That's really nice because it means you're going to get some really good quality images even when using those higher densities. Now, this filter in particular covers 2 to 8 stops of light, and as you can see on the side, it has kind of some markings as to the minimum and maximum stops. I find that to be quite helpful. Now, I know the Polar Pro Peter McKinnon edition has each stop labeled individually. I don't really think that's necessary. This is just fine. You don't really ever need to know which exact amount of stop you're getting, but I guess that's helpful. It has a very nice aluminum ring on the outside. Overall, it just feels like a very well-made product, as it should, because it comes in at quite a hefty price. This is going to cost you about $85. It was $91 for me after tax, but again, you have to pay that higher premium if you want higher quality material. Now, I'm going to be using this specifically on a moment mount adapter, and as you can see, I currently have it on my anamorphic lens. And shout out to Moment, because one thing I noticed when doing research was that out of all of the filter sizes, the 62mm is usually the cheapest whenever there's a range of sizes. I don't know why that is, but it's something that I noticed, and Moment could have really made their adapter any size. So for them to go ahead and choose the cheapest option is really good, and it shows you that they're looking out for their customers. So this one, like I said, ran me $91, but the exact same filter in the 58mm option was over $100. So again, shout out to Moment. I see you guys. Now, I do want to warn you, if you are an owner of an iPhone XS Max and you have a Movi FreeFly Cinema robot, you're going to have some trouble using this variable lens with Moment lenses, and that's because there's just simply too much weight for it to handle. I currently have this 10S Max equipped with an anamorphic lens and the counterweight system. It works perfectly fine, but as soon as I threw this on along with the filter adapter which Moment makes, it would not handle the weight. So I kind of had to jerry rig it by adding some extra batteries to offset that weight. Keep in mind though that might wear out the motors because they can't really handle that much torque. As you can see, this is the Moment filter adapter. You could get this for $30 on their website. Really beautiful. It's made out of nice aluminum material. It's lightweight, but like I said, that variable ND filter is just simply too heavy. And that's also why you might want to consider getting single stop variable filters, because there's only one piece of glass and a thin aluminum ring to keep it there. So now we're going to head over to some test footage outside, and I'm going to show you guys the relationship between shutter speed and exposure and how that all affects motion blur. So let's get to it. Alright, so in this case, we have no ND applied, and as you can see, the shutter's 1/368. I'm going to manually lower that to 1/48 to get that nice blur. But as you can see, the image looks terrible. It's extremely overexposed. So then here is where I'm going to adjust my variable. Currently adding more ND, and as you can see, it's slowly starting to become a better image, and then there you go. This is perfect. I think this is about what you want, the perfect amount of ND so that the sky is completely in exposure and you're also getting that nice motion blur. So much smoother image, that's what you want. Alright, so now I'm going to show you guys the cross polarizing effect. We're currently at 4K 24 frames per second, and I'm going to slowly turn the ND filter. It's going to automatically adjust the shutter, but at a point you'll see the cross polarizing effect. So we're right about at max density, and then you can see the cross come in and just ruin the image. You'd have to keep turning in order to remove that. So I kind of like this because you could play around and kind of see how much you can turn the ND before it starts to have this polarizing effect. This is one of the issues about this filter, I'd probably say, is that in very bright conditions, the 8 stop isn't even enough to cut down your shutter to 1/48, and if you go any further, there's going to be some crossing. So in very bright conditions, I would say this filter isn't recommended. You might want to get a 10 stop, but in cloudy daylight conditions or when you're not facing the sun, it's perfectly fine.
Alright, and now we're going to do some outdoor testing with this filter, which is pretty much one of the best ways to examine how it works. And as you can see here, my friend dribbling the basketball, this first clip's without the filter. As you can see, the ball is stuck in motion, moving very jittery. However, with the filter, a lot more motion blur in each dribble. Next example, you can see that with the basketball hoop, without the filter and with it. And as you can see, you can notice some color shifting. This filter does tend to favor warmer color profiles. This isn't really too hard to correct though in post, and that's why I'm going to put a video near the end that I want you guys to tell with or without the filter. As you can see, a pretty simple test here of my friend waving, and as you can see, that variable ND adds a lot more motion blur. Okay, so based on what we've learned in this video, I want you guys to be able to tell which video is using the variable ND and which one is not. So here we go. I'm going to run the first clip. And now here's the second one. Alright, so comment down below which one you guys think was which.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. This is a little bit different from what I've usually been doing, and I really enjoyed it. I had a good time showing you guys about this. I'm really fascinated with photography and filmmaking, especially mobile filmmaking. So if you like what you saw, please subscribe and leave a comment letting me know what you'd like to see in the future. If you want me to review some other variable ND filters, I know Gobe makes one for a fraction of the price, and I know you guys might want to see that. So let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.